Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast, where tonight we're taking a look at Sunday's rearranged already game against Greenock Morton, where Barry Robson will be looking to hopefully pick up his first win. Now, Dougie Imrie's side have become a bit of a bogey team. They're the only team that have kept a 100% record against Rovers so far, taking 6 points from 6. I'm your host, Robbie Weir, and I'm delighted to be joined firstly by Leslie Maben. How are you doing, Les?
Frozen. I just wish that the weather would let it go and we could get back to some better weather. But looking forward to the weekend's game.
Yeah, it's not been too pleasant, shall we say. It's at least it's dry. That's the only positive thing. Also got Scott Fleming, still in the UK. Scott, how are you getting on?
Yeah, all good, mate. Not too much longer, only just another week and then I'll be back over to Holland. But no, yeah, hopefully, we'll find out, I suppose, this weekend with it being rescheduled if we will get a game.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come on to that in a wee bit. And then we've got I don't know, should we call him the Fabrizio Romano of the podcast? We've got Blair Hopcroft. How you doing, Blair?
Mate, I've been busy. Been out scouting. It's been great.
So I see. That'll kick us off then. So Blair, firstly, did you have a good time?
I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie. It was a pleasure.
So just to explain, Blair, if you could give us a small summary for anyone that's not on Twitter and a bit out of the loop about what we're talking about.
Yeah, so I hate transfer rumours, basically, is where this all stems from. Because 9 out of 10 of them are complete and utter nonsense. It's always, I remember years ago, like, David McGurn was definitely signing for Dunfermline, and, everybody's got a man in the know, and everybody knows. And then you get the guys on Twitter, and the worst of them is that Transfer Scotland. It does nothing. Yeah. And so he basically, in my opinion, and I am just a jobber on a podcast, but in my opinion, he basically just retweets things that he's seen on Twitter, but rather than hit and retweet, he retypes it and doesn't give anybody any credit for where he's got the information from. And it bugs me. And it's basically, for me, it's the equivalent of those folk on Facebook who are like, people will always know the people who love them. And then it's followed by 100 folk going, "You okay, babes? Do you need anything, hun?" Because it's just hundreds of folk going, "Any news on Rangers? Any news on Dundee United? Any Wraith news?" No, he doesn't have any news. And so to kind of prove it, it was Monday night this week. I was feeling a bit bored. And so I dropped into our group chat. It's a bit quiet on the sign-in front. Fancy making one up. Literally just joking at that point. And then I thought, I wonder if I could make one up. So I headed over to transfermarket.com, our good friend, and you can filter by free agents. So I did. Couldn't really see anything. So then I had a look at, I thought, Barry Robson. I'm going to have a wee look at Aberdeen B. There's bound to be somebody at Aberdeen B that we could, because that's believable. Nah, there was nothing particularly there. So I went back to the free agents and scrolled through. On the 4th or the 5th page, lo and behold, Alex Grieve. Now, for those of you that might remember, Alex Grieve was on loan at Dundee United last season from St Mirren. I think it was the January window, actually. Yeah. He went to them in January and didn't really do an awful lot. But he left St Mirren in the summer, signed for Bohemians, and they've had a change of manager or whatever, and they've basically cancelled a load of boys' contracts. And it appears he's away to the States, is the kind of the feeling of it. But he had his contract cancelled on the 1st of January. And I was like, oh, perfect. We've heard of him. He's a forward. He doesn't score goals. He's a perfect Wraith Rovers signing. And so I headed over to Twitter, and this is 15 minutes after coming up with the idea, I stuck a tweet out that basically just said, I've heard from a really reliable source that Alex Grieve is signing for the Rovers. And I left it at that. I didn't say another word to anybody. But I obviously dropped it in the group chat to let you boys know that I was on the wind-up. I got messages for folk. I got the usual tweets for people that I know and stuff. And after the first night, it was mainly just people I knew. So I thought, maybe it's actually not quite as easy as I thought. But fast forward 25 hours later, and Transfer Scotland posts his inside scoop that Alex Grieve is signing for the Rovers. And the best bit of all of it, and it was actually Les that spotted it, is that I'd misspelt his surname. Because he doesn't follow the I before E except after C. He's the other way around. And basically Transfer Scotland picked up on exactly the same spelling. So there's no doubt where it came from. And so, I put out a little short story just explaining my rationale. I have actually heard since it made it to the Rovers directors group chat. So they've seen it. So I'm really hoping it's not become a scouting network, because I'm not convinced Alex Greaves a great signing, to be perfectly honest.
I like the fact that they'll have just sat there in that group chat like, what's this? What is Blair playing at here? Because like, they obviously know that you're on the podcast, and they're aware of you. They're like compass mentis of it. So they're just like, what's the angle with this one? I did enjoy the first selection process that we had. Like, I was trying to get Matty Yates in there because we've been linked with him in the summer, and like he's doing well for Stenhousemuir at the moment in League One. But just a whole lot of nonsense. But that's all it is. That's all it is. And,
that's all transfer rumours are. They are made up by people. I mean, that's effectively what ends up on Pie and Bovril, and what ends up on Facebook groups and group chats all over the place is just, it's always the same. Well, somebody kens somebody that kens somebody that's heard something.
But it also works the other way, because you obviously had the one that was Brodie Patterson, where at Kelty, where someone jumps on Pie and Bovril, sees your idea, and they're obviously like, actually, that's a good shout. I'm going to have a wee go at this myself.
No, it's funny.
And needless to say, debunked in about 10 minutes because his brother, basically. But
I love it.
And Brodie's just signed a new deal at Kelty tonight.
Aye, exactly. So,
good fun.
So, fun. Leslie, do you think that just really illustrates the fishbowl that is Scottish football, and just how to not take things too seriously?
I think that's exactly it. I mean, those of you who have been extremely online for the best part of a decade will know this is nothing new. You might remember Gary Glenn apparently was signing for the Rovers and didn't sign for us because of what was posted on a forum. So this kind of stuff's been going round. And if you go right back to Wraith Fan Talk, about 2004, every transfer window, Alan Troughton has been coming to us, or we should be looking at Alan Troughton.
By the way, the man scores goals.
He's still scoring them in League
goals,
Two.
Absolutely, yeah. The one, I mean, my other candidate, which didn't quite make the cut, which I had thought about putting out, but now nobody's going to believe me, is I was going to start one about Lee Erwin, because the Finnish season's just finished, and Lee Erwin will be looking for a club. I mean, I actually do think we should be looking at him, but I don't think we'll be able to afford his wages. He's been playing well. I was going to get the rumour out that Lee Erwin had been training with us, but that clearly now nobody's going to believe anything any of us say. Now this has gone out there.
But Les, we've said for ages, like, none of us know anything. Like, we keep saying it. Like, we do not have an inside scoop on anybody or anything. And I have to say, like, there was one of my mates did tweet me, and he's like, I thought it was weird that you were saying it, because I hate all that stuff. Because when I used to do the socials bit, but when I did the socials before, every time we had a sign-in, bloody Matt Elder at the Fife Free Press put it up 10 minutes before I'd scheduled to announce it. It used to do my nutting. Like, you just want, as a club, you want the big reveal. You want the release the story. So, yeah, total nonsense. Don't believe anything you read.
I think the social media admin one's very funny, because you get people just tweeting at clubs like, we need to get this sorted. It's just some social media rep that's doing it. And it's like, they don't have the power to change anything. But it is, I feel like with the transfer rumours thing, every club's had a player. Like, I remember with Ayr, it was always Davy Bingham. He was always their one, like, this summer we're going to sign Davy Bingham, because they used to put that on their forums and on their social media and stuff like that, to see how many like red top journalists would actually pick it up, and then lo and behold, it get picked up by someone that's just having a wee scout on the forums from time to time. I was
going to say, it's like the modern day version. Remember there was the story about Paul Brown? Was he at Albion Rovers or something?
No, it was when he was with us. It was Ed. Was it Gordon Forrest, Eddie Forrest, or something like that? Went and played for Ayr, but he was basically at Arbroath. And I think he phoned them up in a prank call, pretending to be the Rovers chairman at the time. and basically said, like, if you get your contract cancelled by Arbroath, then you can sign for Rafe Rovers and we'll sign you. He went and got his contract cancelled, but then obviously it's a prank call, so it all horrifically backfired. I think that's all right. I might be wrong about the story. John Greer will be frantically typing up into a group chat. I'll just see a 10-minute John Greer is typing in our WhatsApp, and I'll know that I've got the history wrong there. Scott, speaking of the January transfer window, still the Rovers very quiet. Not any movement so far, other than obviously, of course, Jordan Doherty, who came in, he'd been pre-arranged before. Do you think that's maybe less of a surprise given what Barry Robson and the board had sort of been saying? And do you think it is something that we need to be, you'd rather be seeing movement sooner rather than later, or is it just one of those things that you can't really force the issue? You've just got to work with the hand that you're dealt.
I think we might have seen a little bit more movement had Collins still been here, because as we discussed in the last one, was like how it's kind of changed since the fact that we've got a new manager now, and he's probably got different ideas or different sort of players that he maybe has an eye on or that sort of thing. But yeah, to be honest, I wasn't expecting any signings to come in really in the first half of January since we got a manager in place. But I think once you start getting to that sort of mid-January, especially when you're in the situation we're in, where we know, like the whole fan base knows, there is one specific position that needs to be filled this month. So I think it's just you're gonna see it ramp up over the next week or so. I would say basically after the Morton game, no matter the result there, but if you start to get to like the 15th, 16th of the month and you still really aren't seeing anything, folk will just naturally start to wonder, is anything going to get done? Are we going to actually fill this void up front that we're really lacking? But we also discussed that maybe it's not just a striker we need. We maybe need somebody that's a bit more creative in the midfield that can help the strikers, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're not creating in getting to the striker, to the box, or even taking the chances when we do get them. So I think it'll be difficult, but at the end of the day, Barry Robson's only in the door, 10 days? Something like that, just over a week now. So I think he'll be kind of sitting down with Barrowman and the board and John Pott and whatever, and identifying who we want to bring in, whether that's a loan signing or somebody that might be a free agent or whatever. But I would like to see us sign somebody by maybe this time next week, for instance. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to throw my toys at the pram. It's just the way it is.
I was hoping for a Scott Fleming rant on a podcast this time next week, so I'm bitterly disappointed. We might still get one, to be fair. Blair, do you think it's one of those ones where maybe as well, there's a degree where you're with the January transfer window, you're a bit of a victim of your own sort of circumstances, and the Rovers are sitting, 6th place at the moment. We're obviously, I think, is it like 8 points behind Thistle, 10 points or so behind Thistle. Need to double check that, but do you think maybe players, when they're coming into this window, obviously you already see Eamon Brophy, he had the option between going to Ayr or going to Falkirk, and he decided to go down to Grangemouth. Do you think it's really players will assess? I mean, we saw it last season with your best friend Zach Rudden, where he decided to ditch Dunfermline in a potential relegation battle to come to Rovers with a chance at a title battle. Do you think that's quite a big factor in terms of where people decide they're ending up going?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, I always remember the one that's always stuck in my head was John Baird, who always talked about the fact that for all the moving about he'd done and all the clubs he'd been at, he'd basically never won anything. And that's something that in a career, I think a lot of players will kind of look at. I always remember the other one was Michael Chopra came up to Alloa from Cardiff, I think it was at the time, and or he'd been in around that kind of level, and it was basically he was the same thing. They were in a Challenge Cup final, and he'd never played or he'd never won a cup, he'd never won a trophy of any kind. So yeah, I mean, I suppose it probably depends a little bit on the position you play as well. If you're Eamon Brophy, like as a striker, I mean, fair enough, you've got the choice between Ayr and Falkirk. I mean, Falkirk are running away with it at the moment, or certainly ahead of the game at the moment. So it's not a huge difference. But do you know what I mean? If you offered him them or us, for example, right now, do you want to come to a team that gets 1 and a bit shots on goal in a game and very rarely gets the ball into the striker? Or would you like to go to a team that scores 5 and 6 sometimes? Like, it's, as a striker, it's probably a no-brainer. I don't know, maybe a goalkeeper might feel a bit different if they're coming in, the chance to actually acquit yourself and be busy. I don't know if that matters an awful lot, but at the end of the day, they're footballers. You get the option of winning most weeks, or you get the option of losing most weeks. You're going to take winning most weeks, I would think.
Yeah, and I think with it, it's one of a bit of a difficult one as well, because it's really depends upon where the club's at as well. You actually look at the form for Rovers, and the games against Falkirk and Ayr obviously stand out in terms of being memorable given the results. But then as well, we have had some wins on the board as well. So these things can change quickly, whether it changes quickly enough that we're moving forward towards the end of January and people are actually saying, oh, maybe that might be an option there to go to if they can turn things round. I think the big factor for Rovers as well, Leslie, number of injuries that we've got at the moment, and we'll touch on this later on when we're sort of looking at the potential game that we've got for the weekend. But do you think that makes it a bit difficult for Barry Robson as well, given that you've got so many players out injured at the moment that you want to see them, but also as well you're sort of questioning, do I need to dip into the market?
I think it does to an extent. I mean, a lot of that will depend on how long some of these guys are out for. So I think that I'm basing this on nothing other than the manner in which folk went off at the weekend. You'd imagine Sean Byrne would be the big concern, given the manner in which he came off. Potentially Paul Hanlon as well, depending on how he landed and hurt himself. I mean, so I think a lot will hinge on maybe who's going to be out and how long they're going to be out for versus who might be back in a week or two. I mean, I think from my perspective, I think Scott's right. The striker position, the centre forward, is absolutely something that we need to resolve. But I mean, aside from that, I think I'd actually be quite happy if we get a manager that's able to get the best out the players that we have with the addition of an additional attacking option. I'd be happy if Barry Robson's able to get these guys working hard, working as a unit, and realising their potential. I think apart from up front, the players that we've got are good, and there's decent depth in most positions. If we're able to actually get to something that is the same as or greater than the sum of its parts, then that will count. I think probably counts for more than bringing in players in other different positions. So, I mean, that's what I want to see, is actually just the manager getting the guys working together, getting a striker in, and hopefully then some of the guys that have been injured coming back in pretty soon.
Yeah, and to add to that, you've obviously got the short-term deals that are coming up. I mean, with Cody David, I believe it's next week that his contract's coming to a close based on what was put in the sort of live update text before the Ayr game. And then you've got your loanees as well. So Finlay Pollock, we still don't know the circumstances, whether Hearts are going to want to take him back, or if Rovers want to sort of look to mix things up as well. So it's again, it's one where it's really in the hands of the clubs to see where it goes and how it moves forward. Enough about that for now. Let's talk about, firstly, before we actually get to the game, just a wee bit about the actual rearrangement of the fixture as well. So, yeah, I was initially a bit surprised that Rovers had agreed to it. Scott, what was your sort of thoughts when you saw it coming through? I mean, I was initially a bit like, oh, we've got a lot of injuries. I'm quite surprised that we maybe didn't try and put it further down the line. Quite a lot of people were very quick to sort of say, on the other side of the coin, well, we're not the only party in this. You've got Greenock Morton. You've also got, it's favourable for the SPFL as well to get the game out of the way as quickly as possible, then really it makes the common sense. It's two parties to one. So get the game on as quickly as possible. What were your thoughts when you saw it, and just about the game in general? Just are you quite surprised that it was just a switch up from the Saturday to the Sunday?
I was a wee bit surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised that they were already planning ahead to potentially postpone it and move it, because I'm not going to lie, I'll be surprised if more than half of the games in Scotland are on Saturday. But to move it just a day, I get that the temperatures, I think, and especially on the West Coast, are going to be significantly higher than what they were on the Saturday. I get that might of played a factor, the fact that it's actually looking all right on the Sunday, but I do get where you came from. I did see your tweet at the time when it got announced, and I spoke to my dad about it, but to be honest, I wasn't too fussed about it, but just the fact that it doesn't really influence me going to the game or not going to the game, but like it's more. I do get where you came from in terms of injuries and that sort of side of things, but I also see where either Morton have already got, and we do as well. Funny enough, both of us have got to play Hamilton in a rearranged game. But then if you got into a second sort of midweek game, then if all it needs is another one, just say, to happen, then you're really scrambling for spare weeks to play games. And that's where, if you start stacking up fixtures getting into March time, then I know that the league will probably start worrying about, oh, well, you need to get everything played as soon as you can. So that side of things, I can see it, and I'd imagine Morton were probably just as much wanting the game on in terms of they'll have hospitality fully booked. I'd imagine they'll have home fans that have paid tickets and whatever. Obviously, there'll be away fans already bought their tickets, but I think Morton probably also pushed for it as well. At the end of the day, I'm not raging that the game's going ahead on the Sunday. As I say, it doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah, I think that as well, with if you're coming at it from the Morton perspective, their fixture run at the moment basically means that this is their last home game for a good wee while. So they're obviously keen to get on to make sure from their perspective that they can get the revenue generated. Blair, just to come to you next, do you think it's a sort of rare? I know that Leslie came on before after the sort of postponement with the Accies game, where we were quite critical about them not having a bit of foresight, and then obviously they have a bit of foresight, and I'm slaughtering them. Do you think it's a rare case of sort of common sense prevailing for once with the SPFL and the clubs involved?
I probably wouldn't go as far as common sense, but I was surprised. I'm not going to lie. I can't remember us ever doing this. I can't really remember a game being postponed and moved before the game. And I could well be wrong on that, but it certainly doesn't ring any bells. I think it is. I think it's relatively sensible in the fact that they're obviously keen to get the game to go ahead and they're not wanting things to pile up. I actually disagree with you slightly in the sense that I think the Rovers will probably want the game to go ahead as well, because I think they want to get on with things. Like,
yeah,
and not, do you know what I mean? You need to get that game off your back almost. And plus, we don't know what the injury picture's like. It's maybe not as bad as we're fearing. You've obviously got Matthews coming back from suspension as well, which is another body. But it's a bigger move than people give it credit for. So obviously, a good mate of mine, Stevie, runs one of the supporters' buses, and he really, really struggled to get a bus for Sunday. Really struggled, and has managed to get one, but at a significantly higher cost. And effectively, everybody on that bus is now paying more money to go to that game than what they would have been had it been on the Saturday for exactly the same journey. And to be fair, he's subsidising it as well. He's taking a lot because he runs it. He always runs a bus at a profit and the money goes to charity. But for example, exactly this, but he can't cover the whole cost. So it's effectively, without sounding like you're kind of bleating, it's taking money away from a charity. It's taking money out of people's pockets to effectively move the game 24 hours. And there's no guarantee the game will actually go ahead on the Sunday either.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it is common sense, I suppose, in a sense that they're being proactive, which is good because it's in the benefit of the vast majority of the fans. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of sits a bit funny, the fact that it's 24 hours. I think had it been a week or had it been 10 days or whatever, it probably wouldn't feel quite so bizarre. Had they just said, actually, the game's... we know the game's not going to go ahead with the way that the weather is, and we've worked ahead and we've got the game rearranged for a week on Tuesday or whatever. I'm not sure it would have felt as weird as just it's moved 24 hours to the Sunday. Sunday football. Not liking it.
With the point about the buses, I think it probably speaks quite a big volume about the way that Stevie's organised that community. Like I posted it on Pine Bovril, but it is like a wee community in itself when you look at the group, and it's brilliant the fact that so many people are like, Stevie, it's all right, look, it is going to cost us a wee bit more, but we will, and fair play to everyone that's doing it as well. Stevie does a
Yeah, there was
tremendous
no
job.
question. Everybody's more than happy to do it, but
yeah.
I don't know. It just feels a bit weird, I suppose.
Yeah, understandable. And Leslie, what was your thoughts on the situation with the rearrangement and just the game getting put forward an extra day?
I mean, like yourself, Robbie, my immediate thought was, oh, come on, we should have played hardball and got this postponed. However, I kind of thought about it a bit, and I thought, actually, it may be the case that the league, it may be the case that the league and Morton had just said, look, come on, having 9 players out injured is not a reason to postpone a game. You can do it on the Sunday or the Tuesday. And I think when you look at it from that angle, you think, yeah, I would. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'd be quite happy if it does end up being postponed, but it's not. I don't think it would have been credible for us to have pushed for a postponement under the circumstances. I don't think we would have a leg to stand on. I think, like everybody else, because it's not really happened before, it does seem a bit odd. I don't know if that's just because we're just not used to it. With my day job and my kind of climate science hat on, if they've looked at the forecast and they've actually seen there's a weather window and they thought we can get the game to go ahead and avoid a backlog, then fair play to them. It's maybe the kind of thing that is just going to take a bit of getting used to. If this is what we're going to have to do when you've got more erratic and extreme weather, maybe this is the kind of thing we're going to have to get used to. I'm one of the people who's now not going to be able to go to the game because the first train from Oban on a Sunday is at 12, so I'm not going to be at Cappielow. Whether that's a good thing or not is a different matter. But yeah, the only other way you could have looked at it is we could potentially have looked at getting it scheduled for, like you say, 10 days' time, or recognising we may well be dumped out the cup. We could both be out the cup and we could have a free weekend when it could go on. But yeah, you never know. I mean, but it seems sensible, and at least it's not a decision that's been made at 1 p.m. on Saturday.
There you go, the Oh No 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 podcast. We've got all the experts here. So we've got Scott, who's a groundsman. Leslie works on climate, and Blair's the master of the January transfer window over there. So,
or I'm just full of nonsense completely.
Well, that's perfectly welcome on this podcast, Blair. You should know that as well, of course. We'll take a look at the game now. Just firstly with our opponents, obviously Morton. Again, as I said right at the top there, Scott, only team to hold a perfect record against Rovers so far. Do you think that reflects the state of play in the games against them so far, given how they obviously beat us at Cappielow before, seemed relatively comfortable given the second half performance, and then obviously nicked it right at the end at Starks Park?
It's a wee bit weird considering like some of the teams that are in the league, and I mean, likes of Falkirk and Ayr have both beat us quite convincingly at certain points this season, and yet neither of them, well, both of them have at least suffered a defeat against us, which a little bit strange, but at the end of the day, yeah, Morton have managed to pick up the 6 points so far. Hopefully that changes on Sunday. But I think we all know Morton's a difficult game, especially away from home, because especially in recent seasons anyway, they've always had a sort of feisty team, somebody that's majority of them are at a decent height, although this season, as we've noticed, they've actually got a few decent players in their team this year, with the likes of Moffat and who's the other boy? I think Garrity's not the tallest as well, but they've got a few decent technical players in their team this year, to be fair to them. But I think no matter what the weather's doing, this is going to be a very difficult game anyway, on paper, as well as what we've seen from them already this season.
Yeah, the one that jumped out for me recently seems to be Cammy Blues. He seems to be getting in among the goals. For me, he's always been a relative sort of staple championship player, one of those players that you see season on season for one of the other teams. A bit kind of like your McAllisters and your Reddins at your United. It just feels like they've been there for ages. You can't recall too much before, but they are there, and you'll see them quite a lot. Just for yourself, Leslie, just with the form table, for Morton in the last 6, they've played 3 and drawn 3, so they are actually one of the better teams in terms of the form at that point. But I think if you extend it up to the 5 games, we jump ahead of them. But yeah, just your thoughts on Morton so far this season.
So I think Morton, that is what I want to see from us for the rest of this season. Now, I do not mean giants. I don't mean air tennis. But what I mean is I know he does our boxing sometimes, but you cannot argue that Dougie Imrie doesn't get absolutely every single thing out of the players that he has. You know, guys like Cammy Blues and Ian Wilson, he's got these guys kicking every ball like it's their last. And I think if we're able to get that kind of work ethic and commitment out of our guys, then I'd like to think that we could kick on. I mean, you know, they've finished fifth in the league twice in the last 2 seasons for a reason, and it's not because of the budget they have, it's not because of the raw quality of the players that they have, but that they're able to get everything out of them. Plus, they also have Stuparevic, who comes out the box every time he plays us and scores goals. Although I did note actually that he scored last week or the week before, so we're not the only team he's scored against anymore. But no, I mean, they're always a difficult team to play against, and this happens every season. They're the reverse of the Rovers because they actually get good when the clocks go back. But there's a lot to you have to say fair play in terms of what they're doing. It's not going to be an easy place to go, but I would like to see a much more workmanlike performance from us than we saw against them in the first half, when there was an element of us thinking we just have to turn up. I do not want to see that again. I'd like to see a much more workmanlike display from us, and then I'd like to hope we can match them or at least get closer to them.
Yeah, that the first half display against them at Starks was infuriating, to say the least, because Rovers, we still got the ball up the pitch at points, but yeah, just every time they got the ball forward, it was like they were just through on goal. It was just such a bizarre game.
You can add pretty much the 90 minutes at Cappielow, the game before that as well, to that. I mean, in terms of if you take these games as 45 minutes, we've drawn one of them. I mean, we were better than them for one of them, and they scored a last minute winner against us. Like, I don't know. I think I feel like they've got our number a little bit, which is quite hard to say because it's Dougie Imrie.
It's very hard. It's
not
very palatable at all.
No, I don't know what it is. That Stuparevic, like I say, we seem to make him look fantastic. But I mean, it's that old adage as well. You're only as good as your last game. And they beat Partick 2-1, and we got horsed off Ayr United. So I don't know. I think they'll go into this game full of confidence, to be fair. I'm
guessing you don't really think that sort of the fact that they've had a week off as well, Blair, should really make too much of a difference given the sort of the circumstances at the moment, or do you think it could be an important one for them?
I mean, they're almost certainly going to have fewer injuries than us. The way things are rolling at the moment, I don't really know, Robbie, is the honest truth, because they're unbeaten in 5. Do you know what I mean? It's 2 wins and 3 draws in their last 5 games, and like, I don't know, like their form, it's up and down all season, which is pretty much what you would expect from a team at their kind of level. But I mean, they drew 0-0 with Ayr. Ayr, the week before we played them, or 10 days before we played them. Do you know what I mean? They managed to keep a clean sheet at Ayr United, and we couldn't keep a clean sheet for 4 minutes. So I don't know. Like, I definitely don't think they're. I don't know. I don't think they're as. This is going to sound terrible. I don't think they're as bad as the first time we played them, because I really didn't think they were very good the first time, but they outplayed us. We were terrible. I really didn't think they were very good. And like Les says, they seem to be a team that gets better as the season goes on. And that's what kind of worries me, is they had a number when they weren't actually winning games. They weren't doing very well. Stuparevic scored. I think he'd only scored once between the 2 games that we played them. I'm sure he'd only scored 1 goal in the whole time between those 2 games, and he scored in both games against us. So yeah, sorry, I sound really pessimistic, but it does kind of worry me a little bit, because I do think they're a team in form, in decent form anyway, and we're so hot and cold that we could turn up and we could turn up and blow them away, and we could turn up and we could absolutely shitfest it. I have no idea what's going to happen.
I think with Stuparevic, it might be that he's just turned up and found the essence of Robbie Muirhead. I don't know if that's a shower gel or something like that kicking about. But he's
figured that we can't defend.
Well, there is that. But it just seems to be that he just finds all the space against us, particularly that last game at Starks, and even the header that he got for the Forest goal when we played them before at Cappielow. And I think that sort of I wouldn't. It's not so much long ball, but the directness that Morton have in terms of just being able to cut the ball up and play sort of those diagonals. And I know that Barry Robson took quite a lot of criticism for a sort of post-match comment about how Ayr had been able to exploit diagonals. And I think if you're going to take a lesson from last week and you're going to apply it to a game, then you need to be switched on against Morton for that sort of thing. Anyway, more of a focus on Rovers now, I think. So just to come back to yourself, Scott, do you think it's really an opportunity to sort of show that lessons have been learned after last week? I know that we sort of had a bit of a speculation in terms of Robson's first game. Was it more of a sort of Potter stroke Cameron influenced team? Do you think it's really an opportunity for him to sort of lay down a marker now and just to be able to sort of show what he can do?
I think so. I mean, he'll have now, coming into this game on the Sunday, he'll have had 2 full weeks of training, technically, under his belt. So you would like to think now, especially in the second week, he's now actually seen them in a match situation. I mean, it didn't go well for him for the first 25 minutes, so he's seen them certainly at their worst. Hopefully, we can get them as close to their best as we can on Sunday, but I think he did say in his interview as well to Davey Hancock, like, I've seen them now kind of struggle. I've seen good things about people. I've also seen not so good things. So you would imagine, because you seen him taking notes all half, in the first half, especially at Ayr. So I'd imagine he's been doing the same at training, making sure that he's kind of noting who he wants to play certain positions and certain roles and whatever. But yeah, I think I don't know. I've got a feeling the team could be slightly different if the injuries aren't too bad. Just because I think he'll be looking for. I think the word we're going to use probably going into the game as well is a reaction after the Falkirk game. It's going to have to be the exact same again. I mean, it was. I think everybody kind of at the stadium on Saturday was going, this is like Falkirk all over again. Like, it was this, everyone's just going, this is the exact same, except Ayr are taking their chances where Falkirk didn't in the first half. So I think he'll certainly be looking for a reaction out his players for sure.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the game, I know, Les, you touched on it earlier on, we finished game sort of minus 9 first-team players in total. Now, one of those was, admittedly, Ross Matthews, who was injured. Do you think it's really hard to sort of say if the situation's improved, given Rovers, again, I know that we've touched on it before, but we tend to play our cards quite close to our chest. So, yeah, just your sort of thoughts on that, and do you think it's important to sort of factor that in when we're moving forward as to sort of, yeah, sure, we had a really poor result last week. Is it too happy clapper of me to say we're missing all those players?
I think you can't deny that's got to have an effect. You know, you can't deny that losing Paul Hanlon in the warm-up is not going to have an effect. And I think if you look at the game, there've been quite a few games this season. There's a few folk were quite rightly pointing out in social media where we've not laid a glove on the opposition. Airdrie away, Falkirk away now, Ayr away. A common factor in those games is particularly Scott Brown either not being available or going off injured, or or lacking that kind of having something, either him or Ross Matthews in the midfield. You'd be daft not to think that had an effect. And nonetheless, there's only, I think, so far you can take that, though. I mean, it is up to the other guys to then step up to the plate and deliver something in the absence. I suspect that the team Robson puts out on Saturday will be very much constrained simply by who's available. I mean, it's not a huge squad at the best of times. You are kind of limited in what you can do at the best of times in terms of changes with that squad. So I do think he may be constrained simply by injuries. But as I say, I think the fact that Brown's been out, Matthews was suspended, that's clearly going to have an effect. If you get one of those guys back, then that's going to be a big bonus. I suspect we might see Doherty coming in. But yeah, as I say, I think we simply do not know. Until we see the team at 2:00 on Saturday, we either go, oh, actually, that's pretty good, or, oh, Jesus Christ, it's going to be one or the other. Until then, I think we simply do not know what's going to come out.
Blair, just to come to you, just in terms of the sort of injury picture as well. Now, I mean, the subs that we brought on last week, Jordan Doherty was obviously the one that sort of stood out. But then on top of that, you've got Cody David, Lewis Gibson and Josh Mullen all came onto the pitch at various points. Josh Mullen playing more sort of centrally. Again, sort of similar to the question I asked Leslie, obviously we were missing those players, but you were there for the performance and what you saw, and you looked a bit more cynical about the situation, I'd say.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just talk to me. What are your thoughts on it? And if you were sort of bringing the changes, are there anyone that's jumping out as being a candidate to come back in and potentially mix it up?
No, really. Doherty's probably the only one I would say has earned himself a place, I think, based on the second half. But as we said in the post-match podcast, it was against a team that was 3-0 up and was kind of cruising, so I'm not really sure how much weight you can put into it. I think Les is right. You can't ignore the fact that all those players were missing. It would be disingenuous to say that that was our best 11 that was out there and all the rest of it. But we should have enough ability about us to not crumble when we have a few players out. We've harped on for ages about the fact that we've finally got a bit of depth in the squad. And actually, the fact that there was 9 out and by the end of it, and realistically, I mean, who was playing in a completely unfamiliar position to them? You could argue that Mullen was, but I still think we need to do everything we can. If we're keeping him, we need to do everything we can to turn him into a centre midfielder, because he's not a winger. He puts a great cross in the box, but he doesn't take a man on. So he's a talented, clever player. And I actually, to be honest with you, I thought he did okay in centre mid. I genuinely did. I thought he did okay. And he actually puts himself about a little bit. He's quite happy to throw himself into a tackle. But it wasn't like we had... I just think last season, we had so many players that were playing, Scott Brown playing at centre-half, Ross Matthews playing at right-back. We had so many players where you go, that's just not even nearly their position. Whereas now, I mean, yes, Stevenson in the midfield, but he's done it before. It's not like it's completely alien to him. We've got that depth. I've been thinking a lot about this current squad, and I worry that we're basically, and this is going to sound horrible when I say it, so I apologise, brace yourself. I feel like we're England. You know that thing where they've got plenty of talent and they've got plenty of good players, but it just doesn't work. A mix I was chatting about it the other day, and it was that thing I kept coming back to. Remember that period where they had Lampard and Gerrard, who were basically two of the best midfielders in Europe at the time, couldn't play together. They just couldn't. They couldn't fit them in a team in a system that worked. And I feel like the recruitment, maybe is the best way to put it, has been all about getting good players in, which is a great recruitment policy. Let's get good players in. But it feels like they're not a team. Like, I mean, I said it before, I genuinely don't normally listen back, but I listened back to the bit, because Duncan and Scott and Les and I all came up with a different reason why it fell apart on Saturday. And I was like, I need to listen to that again and listen to it through. And it was Scott at the end went, you ken that means we just didn't have a team, eh? And I'm like, we really just didn't have a team. And I don't know, I can't put my finger on what it is. But honestly, at this point, I think, as Les says, Robson could do anything he wants. Right now, based on that performance there, he can do anything, because there's not a single player on that pitch who could go, oh, hang on a minute, that's a bit unfair. How am I no? Nah, sorry, you were rotten last week. So it's kind of a fresh start for him. But at the same time, I don't know if we've got time to experiment. We need points on the board. We need points on the board quite quickly.
Yeah, it's in particular in a game like this, where it's against a team that have got the better of you twice, and you're in that position where it just changes the complexion if they win or if we win. But you can't go back to what happened last week. Like, nobody's going to be excusing that performance, and I think that's really important to emphasise. I'm obviously talking about the injuries, but as you say, that's not the cause. It's just one of the sort of minutiae of it, and all about sort of how the team goes into these games and the performance that comes out as well. like just the way that to go. And Robson touched on this in his post-match interview, sort of saying just like it was just like the most important thing. Like, you lost an early goal, don't lose another. And then as soon as that happened, you could just see the belief drain out of them based on that. I was probably quite critical of Barry Robson in terms of like interviews and things like that. Obviously watched the game back, but Blair, you rightfully touched on it. He did make the changes, and admittedly the horse had bolted at that point, but he did make the calls to change things up later on in the game and sort of solidified things. But by that point, obviously, the game was well away. So if he can do that during a game, surely it stands to reason that we can do it right from the start and be able to do that. One player in particular that we've spoken about quite a lot, but yeah, for you, Scott, Jordan Doherty, do you think he's going to need to be used in the middle? We've obviously got Ross Matthews coming back, but we lost Sean Byrne to what looks like a sort of longer term injury there. Do you think it's really going to be? I know that it was mentioned a bit before about the whole Scott McGill of it all, but just having him sort of across the pitch in different positions, just sort of almost firefighting at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into this weekend, it will be interesting to see if Doherty does come into the fold. I mean, I think it was Les that had said it at full time on Saturday, just as I was getting in the car, he'd says, I thought that Doherty was really good, and I went, I think he was fine, but I think it was because how bad we were that made him stand out so much, just because he didn't really put in a foot wrong. But I think that certainly will put him in the fold, as I say, but whether he plays in that sort of right back position again where he did come on and play, or if he comes into a sort of defensive midfield role, I think he might come into the midfield only if Scott Brown isn't available on Saturday, because I'm going to put it that I think that Sean Byrne, the way that he went off, I don't think he's playing certainly this week. But we'll find out, I suppose, if we get like a pre-match tomorrow for the club. But yeah, I think we could be needing him in there beside Matthews. The way that he played on Saturday as well, it wouldn't be surprising if he's the one that's kind of... Matthews is still the sort of destroyer or sort of breaking up the play, and Doherty is the one that kind of is getting about the place, because he actually looked quite athletic and running about a fair bit and just being in that right back position. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the sort of role he gets asked to do. But as I say, if Scott Brown is fit and fit enough to give you almost 90 minutes, I would be playing Scott Brown. I get folk will be like, oh, but a reoccurring calf injury has been keeping him out, and I get that, but at the end of the day, we can't just keep waiting and waiting. If he claims that he's fine and the physios think that he's okay, then I would play him. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with putting Doherty into the midfield at all.
Yeah, I think that see, for this game, I think it's really difficult to gauge as to who's actually going to start. Like, I mean, even we'll come on to lineups just shortly. That's going to be a really tough task. So it might be one that we just skip altogether, particularly given the game's actually under threat. But yeah, I mean, certainly we're going to be missing Callum Smith, Lewis Vaughan, Frankie Dabo, if he's still about, because we're not really too sure again on that front. We're not in the loop.
I see it. Yeah.
But yeah, on top of that, Sean Byrne's potentially, again, looking on the longer side. Other than that, it's really hard to say actually who's going to be there, because Jack Hamilton's, again, one that we've not seen recently. You would imagine that there's not really going to be a chance for him to start. It'd be very surprising if he came straight back into the fold straight off an injury. And then you're looking at the likes of Liam Dick, Paul Hanlon, and that changes up your potential lineup. You're looking at, as you say, Scott Brown. It's one of these things which is very, very frustrating as a fan, because it must be really frustrating for him as a player, because it feels like he comes back from injury and he looks really solid and he does such a good job, one of the best players in terms of a box-to-box midfielder in the Championship, but then he goes back out injured again. It's not something that's within his control. It's just unfortunate that it happens. But yeah. Leslie, do you think, just going into this game, we had the horror show at Grangemouth earlier on in the season, and then we bounced back from that with a couple of wins. Do you think it's really important to look back to that, to keep that in mind as sort of an inspiration and show what can actually be done in terms of bouncing back, so that we're not getting too carried away one way or the other, because that was sort of, I know that we said that before the Ayr game itself. It's I think it was the post-match for the Queen's Park game. I was sort of talking about how just we've been through this so many times now, and it's probably the same problem that Morton have had. You win a few games and then you're losing a few games, albeit there seems to be that they go on more extreme runs than us. Do you think it's quite important not to get too carried away with things and to use that result from before the sort of matches after that performance against Falkirk at their place as sort of inspiration to show that we can bounce back from these sorts of things?
To an extent, yes. To an extent that we have bounced back before. The difference this time is we're playing away from home, where we have been absolutely flaming, appalling away from home. Dunfermline, it was at home, we had the crowd, and thankfully the crowd got behind the team. The team were up for it. You actually saw guys going through the pain barrier to show Collins that they were up for it. And we got a very good goal before half-time, and it all just kind of clicked into place from there. We're not going to have that this time unless Harry decides to bring a giant Japanese taiko drum with him down to Greenock and give it a good big hit. We're not going to have that same backing. Our record away from home has not... Yeah, great, get it on. Get it on. We're not going to have that home backing. We're not going to have the home crowd. So you're also asking us to overturn the fact that we've been atrocious away from home, as well as coming back from a thumping. But you never know. So any team seems to be able to drop points in bizarre fashion. So there's Falkirk losing 5-2 to Ayr. Okay, there were mitigating circumstances. There's Partick losing 4-1 to Dunfermline. Weird results can happen. I just don't have a good feeling about this one. But then I never do. So I think that might be something I would just point to, is that the division's so erratic that anything can happen at any time. And the game that you think you're going to lose ends up being the game that you do win. But as I say, I just don't have a good feeling about this one.
Was that a sneak peek into Leslie's prediction?
I think you can all tell what I've predicted. You could go around every person in the group chat and they would all know that I've predicted home win, not both teams to score.
Nice vote of confidence there,
Garrity and Blues 3-0 Morton.
Jesus.
Cheers for that, Les. Inspiring.
You'll need to put the parental guidance thing on this podcast, because that's going to scare the Waynes.
Pretty much. It's it's Cappielow is a football cliche in the sense that it's a really, really tough ground to go to, and against a very, as Blair rightfully said, very hard-working team. Dougie Imrie's got them set up perfectly in terms of where they're at for now. It's certainly going to be a tough one. It's really hard to sort of see where it goes. Again, do we even bother with lineups at the moment? I'm just going to shake my head. Yeah, I'd say so as well, Blair. So I think that's fair enough. What we'll do is we will take a brief break, and then we'll come back and, as customary, have our game of Should McStay or Should Dargo. So we will be back with you in a moment.
Blair.
Yes, mate.
You're a man.
Yes.
And you have thoughts and feelings and emotions.
Yes.
Are you good at talking about all that stuff?
Well, I try my best, but I don't know. Probably not as much as I should.
I'm the same. I feel better after getting stuff like that off my chest, but I don't do it anywhere near often enough. Have you heard about Andy's Man Club?
They're brilliant. They create a safe space for men to sit down and talk about the important stuff. And they do it right across the country as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've got more than 200 meetings across the UK, and it's every Monday night at 7 o'clock, including one at Starks Park.
And if anyone wants more information on it, they can go to andysmanclub.co.uk or search for Andy's Man Club on Facebook. It's okay to talk, and now we're going to get back to talking about the Rovers.
Okay, and welcome back to the Oh No podcast. Andy's Man Club, of course, doing superb work there. They're every Monday night, I believe, at Starks Park. I know that certainly Kenny Armour is the person we contacted to sort of get that organised. He's a Rovers fan, very heavily involved with them. So yeah, if you do see Kenny about at the games and you know him in terms of that, feel free if you need any information. I'm sure that he'll be more than happy to talk to you about Andy's Man Club, and of course go on the Facebook page as well. We've got groups all up and down the country. Just before we get on to McStay or Should Dargo, run the Rovers. We're making good progress. We've got ourselves already made our way through Coat Bridge, and now we're surpassed through Castle Douglas and Freve Rovers. Did anyone make it down to the away day down there in the Scottish Cup about 2007 or so?
No, I missed it.
Brilliant day.
I remember it. I think I was maybe working.
Aye, it's soft. That was one of those, because I think it was the first time that we played away from home in a Scottish Cup game against a non-league side in a good while. And yeah,
It's kind of Dumfries way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's down. It's past Dumfries basically, so it's sort of. I think it's sort of like sandwiched between Dumfries and Annan, and it's on that sort of like the peninsula there. But yeah, Rovers won comfortably that day, and just we're off there now. I don't know where the next one is. I did ask earlier on whether it's going to be Blackburn or.
It is Blackburn.
Is it? Excellent.
We're heading to Blackburn, yeah. So yeah, I lied last week when I talked about this. I say lied. I just didn't know. I thought we were going around the Championship, but we're going around all the Rovers, which actually is really clever, and has been a fair bit of work from Graham. So yeah, if you can get signed up, folks, get wired in. There's a cycling one and a running one, so plenty of opportunity to shed the Christmas pounds.
And we've also discovered that Bob the Pledge is exceptionally rapid. By the way. Aye.
He's aye.
Well done,
Quick.
Bob. Brilliant. It's class
Get him signed up.
Aye. He's doing most of the work for us, to be fair. Anyway, we've got a game of Should McStay or Should Dargo, which Leslie's prepared for us, so we'll all be greeting within a moment or two.
Strap yourselves in, kids.
Yeah, if you're unfamiliar with the premise, 6 or 7 questions regarding a former or current Raith Rovers player. And we'll each take turns in terms of guessing it. Usually it ends up as a team effort because none of us are struggling. And Leslie loves the most ridiculous of clues as well. So, yeah, if you want to kick us off, Les.
Okay, so I started my career with my hometown club, and I made my senior debut 1,400 miles from Starks Park.
Jean-Philippe Javary.
I don't know why I'm trying to figure out in my head where 14,000 miles is from Starks Park, because
14,000 or 1,400?
100.
1,400.
1,400.
1,400.
As well.
I think I said
1,400 miles.
Until that bit was added, I had a guess, and then I'm like, I don't think there's any chance that he's 1,400 for that.
Willie Nanu?
I don't have. Christian Nadu.
Okay. Clue 2. Dangerous animals. Before I came to Raith Rovers, I played for a club who have an animal on their crest that kills on average 100 people a year. After I left Raith Rovers, I went to a club with an animal on its crest that kills statistically 72 people a year.
Oh,
Christian Nadi.
Lord.
Christian Nadi.
Okay.
I think 100 people a year. That vaguely rings a bell in my head. That's elephants, I think, which would make it Dumbarton. I mean, I could be wrong.
If that's the case, I'm sticking with the answer.
I think that's a good shout.
What did you say?
He said Nadi before, I think.
Oh, damn it. Did you? Oh, man.
Sorry, Les. So I got the first part about 100 people. What was the last part?
This player then went to a club that has another dangerous animal on its badge. That dangerous animal kills 72 people a year.
Right, okay.
And the order was he came to us from a team with 100. and
Yep.
went from us to a team with 72.
Yes.
Where was Nadie before us?
I wasn't Dumbarton, that was after us, wasn't it?
Aye, Dumbarton was after.
Mind you,
Wait, the
that could be
Elephants are
72.
72.
Elephants could be 72.
So wait, right. This clue's fried my head. So it was what animals was it and what order was it in? And
So before was the more dangerous animal that kills about
Okay.
100 people a year. After was the less dangerous animal that kills about 72 people a year. Globally. These are global numbers. This isn't just in the UK.
I ain't going to bother changing my answer because I don't have a Scooby out of them.
I'm just trying to think of teams with animals on their badges.
Peterhead of a
So-
fish.
But I'm
An attack.
I mean, we're already into group work.
We are.
How
of
many
course.
people? How many people a year are killed by a lion? Can it be that many? Surely, people. I mean, lions kill a lot, but can it be a lot of people?
I don't know. I can't imagine that there's that much.
There's no any like mental wasps going about, is there? In Alloa.
So where was
It's a
Christian
wasp.
Nadie before us?
It's a wasp on Trembelow and it looks raging.
Where was Nadie before us?
Did he not?
We've got the clue too, and we're already trying to help each other out here.
Aye.
Oh, aye. Boys, we're in this together. Come on. I can't think where he
I'm
was
sticking
before
with
that.
Addy because I've got nothing better.
1,400 miles has got to put it somewhere in France, Germany, Belgium. Actually, you're probably about 1,400 miles, aren't you?
I think
when you're at home?
I'm just a bit less than that, I think.
Yeah.
Get it put into Strava and just see where we're at.
I think 100 could be a lion, you know.
Right, I'm going
Which
to
would
stick with
certainly
Willie
make
Nanny
sense.
because I think that we really need another clue because we're just
We do.
It's going to be another animal
Okay.
that's 50 kills.
100
So-
people.
After I was released by my boyhood club, I was signed by Ian Murray.
I was signed by Ian Murray.
I would say that this boy isn't actually as old as that Nadie then.
well,
Is that the full clue?
right. So if he was
That's the full
signed by
clue, aye.
Ian Murray, is it maybe someone that's? I mean,
Was it Dumbarton?
Dumbarton or Airdrie?
Dumbarton makes sense because the elephant
Yeah.
thing. They've got an elephant on their badge.
Aye, well, Airdrie don't have any animals on their badge, so
Yeah.
that
I'm
chucks that
trying to
one.
think.
Unless you're killed by diamonds.
Ian Murray was at Dumbarton. Was Ian Murray the manager for about 2015 or something at Dumbarton?
Yeah, it must have been about like 2016, I'd say.
Mm.
I don't know if his
Just
first
to be-
season was the season that we got relegated.
Les, just to be really clear, I'm on the
Yep.
animals. I don't know why I'm going
Aye.
back to the animals. It was one. Neither of those club badges were our badge. It was the one club before us
Yeah,
and
no,
the one
no.
club after us. That's fine.
Yes,
So that
yeah.
rules us out as his boyhood club.
Right.
Well, obviously it does. He's 1,400 miles away. Tube.
Right.
So a
What
player
French
who's
boy did Ian Murray sign for Dumbarton?
I'm going to give you guys a bit of help here because I think this is like unfairly difficult. Clue 1. Just
Sympathy
remember
clues.
that you don't always. Just remember you don't always make your
Oh,
debut
you
at
go
home.
north. All right, okay.
What was that?
You don't always
Just
make
remember
your
you
debut
don't
at
always
home.
make your.
right, okay.
So was clue 1, he made his debut 1,400 miles from Starks?
For this boyhood
Yes. Yes.
club. Right.
Ah.
So who's been a youth player? I want to say it's someone like Hearts or Hibs.
Wait. So you're saying that he made his debut 1,400 miles away from him?
Basically, aye.
Yes. Pretty much, right.
See, I thought he was born 1,400 miles away from Starks.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the logic. I think we probably all went down that route.
Yeah.
Still doesn't help me.
I'm just foreign players that played for Dumbarton. I mean, Naddy was
Can't
one,
be
but he
many.
was after us, and he wouldn't have been.
I'm getting to the point where I'm almost naming guys that I know haven't even played for the Rovers.
Aye.
I'm at the stage where I keep trying to convince myself it's players that currently play for the Rovers, even though Les has already told us that he went to a club that killed 72 people a year after he left.
The
After he
club
played for
didn't.
them.
The animal in their crest did.
That's. Didn't let the truth get in the way of a good story, Les. Come on.
Right, so we've got any advance on the players I have down in front of me, which is Christian Naddy for Blair, Wally Nanu for Robbie, and Christian Naddy for Scott.
Definitely no fucking Willie Nanu anyway.
No,
I don't think it's Christian Nani either.
I don't think it is either, but I've got no better guess.
I mean, I think it's
Has to have-
obviously. I think we
have
can take
left
out.
us.
So we can take out the foreign player because obviously with what Les said about like it being a player where they've made their debut away from home, but they don't necessarily need to be foreign because it could have been for a club that's played in Europe and they've been playing
Yeah.
right. So if we look at right, so
left us.
So I think we're really going through the Scottish football badges and now deciding.
We
how...
seem to still be fine with Dumbarton as going to be one of them, though.
I mean, Elephant's pretty.
I'm trying to think who else has got what, like, because Livingston's a lion as well, isn't it?
Kilmarnock is a squirrel. Tetanus.
Go and read me clue 3 again, Les. Sorry, because there's so much detail in your clues. I'm going to have overlooked
Clue
something.
3's the easy one.
Clue 3's easy one. I was released by my boyhood club, and then Ian Murray signed me.
So straight away after being released by my boyhood club, Ian Murray signed me.
So he went 1,400 miles away again to play for somebody.
So boyhood club is going to have been a big team. To be playing a game 1,400 miles away has to be in Europe.
Yeah.
PSG.
So it's got to be one of the bigger Scottish Premier League teams, maybe.
Yeah.
But they've played youth level.
Yeah. So you're looking.
Come to us after being at a club. So they've maybe come to us from Dumbarton.
So who's been an ex-Rangers or Celtic youth that's played at Dumbarton?
Derek Carkery?
Nah, he came from Rangers directly to us.
Yeah.
Also played at Dumbarton, that was the only reason why.
Aye.
What about what's his name? Cove.
Mitch Megginson.
Mitch Megginson.
Mitch Megginson, you dick.
We're in this together.
He's still getting that.
Yeah.
That's my guess. Mitch Megginson.
He's still getting it because I said it before him.
Because he was at...
Was he at Celtic
Aberdeen?
Rangers?
No, Aberdeen.
Aberdeen.
Which would be his boyhood club.
Played in Europe with them.
He left them and went to, I want to say Dumbarton.
Yeah.
Because he came to us from
He was an Alloa player, Wasps.
And he's also at Cove, so Lions.
Yeah.
Place is just like raw.
Yeah.
Right,
I reckon
You get clue 4.
I think it's a really good shout though, Blair.
Right. Clue 4. At Wraith Rovers, I averaged 1 goal in the league in 530 minutes.
Sounds pretty much like him.
Mitch Megginson, yeah. Could be 530 minutes.
Because he was prolific before he turned up, and then he was prolific when he left.
And he never got a game for us.
And that was...
He was one of the... Was he not one of the part-timers in the sort of hybrid model that we had?
That was under... Was that under McKinnon that we got him?
Aye, but we did. But who would Ian Murray have been at where he's gone with them?
Dumbarton.
Was he at Dumbarton before us?
Yeah. I'm sure he was.
Right.
I'm sure he signed for us from Dumbarton.
I can't mind
because he was part-time, and he stayed part-time with us, even though we were almost entirely full-time. He played part-time with us.
Les, did you say that the animal of the badge when he left was the 72.
Yes, yeah. So
I mean, folk going into anaphylactic
There's
shock with
people, there's
wasps.
people like allergic to wasps and all thing.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I'm saying. Anaphylactic shock. Like,
Vicious wasps. Worldwide as well. Wasps get massive.
particularly if they're on steroids like the aloe one.
Exactly. It's true, actually. It's got muscles on muscles.
Aye.
a really buff wasp. Wasn't it? I think it was Joel Skade said that on the terrace. It's like this frighteningly buff wasp.
to be fair, I think
Right,
I think Megginson's as good a shout as we've had yet.
Okay, clue 5. I have played in Europe, Premier League, Championship, League 1, League 2, and the Pyramid.
Yep, that may
Pyramid.
Megginson as well.
Highland
To be
League.
fair, I didn't ken that he'd even made an appearance for Aberdeen.
It'll be one of those ones where he's came off the bench and it's been like 10, 15 minutes.
Uh,
He might have made more, to be fair, but
Actually, that's a point. It might not have been like a youth European game.
yeah,
It might have actually been a European game.
yeah, that's what
It
I'm
might
thinking.
have come off the bench, yeah. Because, I mean, Scott Brown came off the bench in Europe, didn't he, for
St John.
St Johnson?
Yeah,
So did Dylan Easton. Yeah, we'll stick with
Right,
Mitch
I think
Megginson.
we're
It's a team
team-
effort at this point. No one's winning this. We're teaming up.
Leslie's always the winner when he's on it.
True.
Clue 6. My scoring record for Wraith Rovers was not great. My current club, I have averaged more than a goal every 2 games.
Yeah, it's got to be Mitch
Gotta
Megginson.
be Mitch Megginson.
And then clue 7. I have been involved in the Pyramid League 2, League 1 playoffs. I've lost all of them. One of them involving an amusing incident with a kazoo on Club TV, and one of them involving me branding the opposition a shite club.
That was Mitch
sounds
Megginson.
like Kovac counting beef.
That is,
Yeah,
it is
Well done, Blair.
indeed. So we...
that's good. That was good, Les. To be fair, I've got to be honest, had you not given us that bit of help, I would never have got there.
I think
never
we
in a
would have
million
still
years.
been on foreign players the whole time.
Yeah. Because we
I
totally
just thought,
misinterpreted that first clue.
It's one of those ones I just thought, actually, that's kind of unfairly hard when you put it out. When you say, actually, you don't make your debut at home, then it changes
Yeah.
the whole dynamic of it, and you realise, okay, it's a guy that's been at a big club, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Well,
That was
That's,
really good, Les.
yeah, got to say.
Another 20 minutes of
very clever.
stress.
And was it, so 100 was elephants
Yeah, so about,
and
apparently about
72
100...
was wasps?
Yes, so I looked up some statistics before I came on, and I mean, they could be wrong, but it said about 100
Yeah.
people are killed a year from elephants, and yeah, about 72 people are killed a year from wasps.
Yeah.
Those
I had
numbers
the
could be
elephant
totally
thing in
wrong.
my head. I don't know why. That's so random. I'm sure I've heard that before.
You're thinking about French club badges on the first clue, though, eh? With
Totally.
the way that it was framed, you're thinking like 1400.
Well, it was that
far
thing of,
away.
I kind of thought it's maybe going to be one of these players who, like a Christian Nadi, who's French, has never really had a career in France. Like, his
Yeah.
whole career has been here. Do you know what I mean? But, no, that was really good, Les.
Yeah. Thoroughly
That
well.
was better than the game last week. Right there.
Anyway, hopefully we'll have more positive, upbeat. Might not even have a post-match podcast based
No.
on this weather, but yeah, we will potentially be back Sunday evening, Monday. Who knows? Like nobody thought about podcasts when they were rescheduling this game. That's for sure. So yeah, we will be back at some point in the future to take a look ahead, take a look back. We're still not sure. It's really difficult to do these outros in this position. But yeah, we will be back with you no doubt some point next week to have a look at things, all things Wraith Rovers related. But thanks a lot for taking the time to listen. And as ever, bye for now.